Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the workshop and I hope that you found it practical, useful and interesting. Quite a lot that you've covered in whatever space of time you took. The Common European Framework is so important in today's world. What it does is not only to describe competence in the 4 skills, but also to look at the domains. People operate not just in the classroom, but learners operate in the personal domain, public domain, educational and occupational. And it's very important that a test reflect this. For a test to be valid, as well as reliable, it needs to test what learners need to learn, and that helps teachers to teach what they should be teaching. We should not just be teaching towards an examination. It's the role of the examination to test accurately and reliably what we teach and what our learners learn. I hope we've also looked at the rationale for different tests for spoken and for the other skills, and also at the levels from A1 preliminary up to and including C2 mastery in the City and Guild suite. And don't forget that learners can take tests at different levels. If they do the two tests at the same level, each of those certificates is put together and becomes a diploma. But they don't have to do things at the same time. People learn at different speeds. Everybody has a different profile. Flexibility is the most important thing. I hope we've shown you what the levels are and how we interpret them. I hope also we've shown you how the different parts of the tests work. The best way to become familiar with them is, of course, to use teaching support materials, is to use the sample papers that you can get online on the web page and use freely. And the best way to get to know the tests is to get to know them through the students, through successful candidates in your teaching. I hope we've also looked at just how we as assessors do give the marks. We look in much more detail in the separate skills workshops because that's their role. But I hope you've got some idea of how important it is to get the balance. In the international ESOL test, for example, listening, reading and writing must all be passed. A candidate can't compensate for great differences between one skill and another. And that in the real world is what people need to do. In the spoken ESOL, similarly, the different criteria contribute equally to the assessment. So I hope you found that part of the workshop useful as well. One thing that I enjoy particularly when I look at these workshops myself is seeing things from different viewpoints. Different teachers are teaching in different scenarios. I mentioned in the introduction that we have unilingual, monolingual and multilingual. The difference between multilingual and the others is pretty obvious. Learners have a different first language. Monolingual teaching is when the teacher is a native speaker of the target language, but the learners are not. Unilingual, as we've seen, is when the teacher shares the same first language. I don't think there is any single advantage or disadvantage in the particular position. I think that if you're a teacher who knows the learner's first language, you have that insight. You can actually understand some of the needs of the learners in a way that I couldn't. Let's face it, these tests are called International English for speakers of other languages. And as a teacher, if you know the learner's first language, then it does give you that particular insight. If you are a teacher whose first language is English, you have the advantage of knowing what is current, what is idiomatic. And if you're in a multilingual teaching situation, you can of course set up interaction far more naturally and far more readily. The books that we've written, the teaching support materials for International ESOL and International Spoken ESOL, allow for classes of any nature, of any size, and they have been successfully used with unilingual, monolingual, multilingual groups of a small number of students, up to 60, 70, 80 students. A good teacher can adapt materials, and do please feel free, if you use the materials, to adapt them. We've included in the teacher's book a lesson plan If you can improve on it, do it with our blessing. You know your learners better than we do. I hope we've also looked at teaching approaches and methods in a practical way. Not a theoretical way, but what actually works. And as I said at the outset, communicative teaching will get the results. Most important, as we go through the individual workshops, will be to look at practical teaching ideas. So I hope that you will look at the other workshops. We have got individual workshops on all the skills and even in the spoken test on the sub-skills. So, from me for now, thank you once again for joining in the workshop. Hope you found it useful, and I do hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.